Welcome to the Simple Doesn't Mean Easy podcast. We are here once a week working at simplifying things in our lives, one simple step at a time. I'm your host, Michelle Visser, and I'm glad you're here. Today, we're talking about something that happened just a few days ago. And actually, I know I'm always telling you that this gets recorded before it goes live. I'm never quite sure what's happening in the world when this is going to be coming out. Well, we paused our schedule, or should I say, moved the schedule forward another week so that I could record this episode right now in the here and now and get it out on Monday with my thoughts on something that happened just this week with the Food and Drug Administration. And I don't know, you might be surprised at my thoughts and my reaction to this. But before we dive in today, guys, we talk so much on this show about our toxic environment and toxic ingredients. And I have great news for you. I have found the most amazing small business that is truly making a difference. Go meet them at soulyrested.com/soap, SOAP. They are making all natural products with simple ingredients, plants, herbs, grass-fed tallow, and these ingredients have a profound effect on our skin. They're promoting cell growth, reducing inflammation, improving hydration, and so much more. Go to soulyrested.com/soap and snag a lot more than just soap. Check out the lip balm, the face lotion, the body butter, the natural perfumes, the all natural diaper cream, and the soap's amazing. You will feel so pampered and you can save 15% off, not to mention getting free shipping. Go find out the details at soulyrested.com/soap. So this week, the Food and Drug Administration did something a little unusual, and they made an announcement that pretty much has the whole world talking. They announced that they are officially banning red food dye number 3. And for the most part, I know that you've seen a lot of people, if you're on social media in this world of real food, you've probably seen a lot of people really celebrating this and saying how great this is and talking about it. And don't get me wrong, of course, it is absolutely great that our Food and Drug Administration has decided to remove a carcinogen from our food. I'm all for that. Here's the thing. It is a very small step, a very tiny little tadpole in a very big pond of problems with our food system. So I don't want to sound like I'm being a Debbie Downer. Absolutely, this is going in the right direction. And absolutely, it shocked me. I mean, I was in a coffee shop that morning and it it changed my whole day because I instantly stopped what I was doing and I started writing an email and I put together a reel to let people know on Instagram. And it it gave me a lot of pause throughout the day that, wow, this is a great thing. Okay, maybe our FDA is going to start cleaning itself up. Maybe our food is going to start improving. Um, but there's a lot of things I want to talk about today about this. First of all, it's kind of insane that it has taken this long for this dye, which by the way is made of petroleum. We talked, I don't know what episode it was. I'll put it in the show notes. We talked about ice cream. Does ice cream have petroleum in it and what that means for us and why it's much better to make your own ice cream? You might like that episode. But yes, red food dye number 3 is made from petroleum and it's in our food. It's in a lot of our food. Unfortunately, it's also in a lot of food that's primarily marketed to kids. And I don't know, to think that it took this long, it just blows my mind. And back in I believe it was 1990, maybe it was 91. It's definitely early 90s. This exact same dye was banned by our cosmetic industry. And lipsticks and any other thing that they were putting out was no longer allowed to have this dye in it. 30 years ago, guys, more than 30 years ago. Did I do the math right? Yeah, more than 30 years ago. Like what? That's great. That's so important. I mean, our lips are the thinnest skin on our body. Our skin in general is the largest organ of our body. Kudos to the cosmetic industry that they realized this when they did and they did something about it. But in some ways, it seems like it's much more important to clean up our food from this carcinogen. I don't know. Like, you can easily choose to wear or not wear lipstick, but you're surrounded and by and need food for sustenance. And it's kind of hard to find food that doesn't have red food dye number three in it. So that's my first concern is why it took so long. And the fact that it took so long tells us even if the FDA is on the right path, even if they're going to start cleaning up their act, it's a really big, ugly act that needs cleaning, and it's going to take a long time. It also tells us that we really can't trust them because as they announced it, they are as if you doubted that, by the way. But as they announced it, they were covering their back and saying, by the way, it still has not been proven to cause cancer, but we decided we're going to take it out. Okay. There have been numerous tests done that do show it is carcinogenic. Maybe there hasn't been one that directly showed a person who ate it their whole life and died from cancer, because of course that would be unethical and pretty hard to do such a study like that, I would think. And also, you know what? They didn't want to pay for the funding that would require, what would need to be done to see, is this a carcinogen? They could have done it 30 years ago, but nobody wanted to pay for that because then they're also losing money on the other end. That's really why they didn't want to pay for those tests to find out about this ingredient, because it would impact way too many big food companies, and it's going to cost them more now to make their Fruit Loops because the red circles in the cereal are going to need to be made with something else, and maybe it'll be beet powder, but then they might need to add a little more sweetener, and then they might need to spend more for that beet powder than they did for their red dye. They definitely will have to spend more for any natural ingredient that they're going to use to dye. So it's going to hurt the big food companies, the bottom line of how much money they're going to make. Of course, we all know it's really not going to hurt them. They're just going to raise the price of Fruit Loops, right? Um, Also, that's another concern that I have is when this does take place, we still have things we need to watch for. Like, are they going to increase the refined sugar, like I said in that example of Fruit Loops, to make up for the beet powder that they're using instead of the synthetic dye? So there's always something as consumers we need to be diligent about. It's just a fact. Even if the FDA really did have our back, we still would need to be diligent. Also, they have a long time to, they have allowed a long time for this ban to be enforced. The big food companies have 2 years, guys, 2 honkin' years to figure out what they're going to replace the red number three with. It isn't that hard. They know right now what they can replace it with. Trust me, they do, because they're doing it in other countries, right? Other countries haven't allowed this dye for a long time, and they've been selling their food in the other countries. So they know how to do it. Um, it's just they have 2 years to make as much money as they can without doing it. And second of all, it's even worse than that. The drug companies have 3 years before they have to enact this ban. So kids' cough medicine, dietary supplements, anything that falls under the Drug Administration part of the FDA, they have 3 years that they can still be literally putting a carcinogen in the drugs. I mean, literally, there are drugs that are for cancer patients. I heard someone just yesterday talking about, I believe it was like some sort of a shake. I don't know if it was like a protein shake or something, but it was specifically for cancer patients. And it has red dye number three in it. I mean, guys, it's not that hard. They knew what they were doing. But it made a few extra pennies to do it that way. It's mind blowing. It really is. All right. So that's one thing that as consumers, we need to remember for the next 2 to 3 years, it's still going to be in our food. So we can't do a happy dance a little too prematurely. Also, this is one dye. One. Again, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. This is a good thing. But guess how many food dyes the FDA has approved? 36. Of those 36, guess how many are completely chemicals? They're completely synthetic. 9 of them. So right now, there are completely approved A-OK synthetic food dyes approved by the FDA in our foods. And that's just the synthetic ones. Like I said, there's 36 total. And it gets worse. We did an episode about the generally recognized as safe ingredients. It was episode 131, where we talked about those GRASs. And the fact is, it's not just these 36 food dyes. There are so many other things that food companies can slide in under the radar, labeling it as generally recognized as safe. And it very well could be an additive that they know darn tootin' has been shown to cause cancer in lab rats. It could be, but it can squeeze in under that overall umbrella of safeness. So go back and catch that episode. I already forget. I just told you. I don't want to repeat it in case you missed it. 131. Go back and catch episode 131. And of course, I'll leave that in the show notes too. So so what can we do? We, first of all, can stop using food dyes ourselves. I will be totally honest with you. I have some food dyes in my kitchen cabinet right now. I don't know when I used them last, but I also don't know why I haven't just ditched them. I I don't know. I think it's a matter of I've always grown up with these, as a kid, I made all the different cookies with my mom and load them up with the dyes and it was so fun and with my own kids I did the same thing. And I guess I feel like just because of that fact alone, they really aren't as bad as people say they are. Heck, I'm one of the people saying it, and yet I'm still going, they really aren't that bad, are they? And I'm just using a few drops of it here and there. So that's my starting point. I'm going to go find these in the recesses of my cabinet and I'm going to ditch them. You do have lots of other options, and I will link them in the show notes. And please, if you have not yet subscribed to our brand new thing we're doing, we are sending out an email once a week that has all the links, all the information that I mentioned in an episode in an email so you can just quickly access whatever it is. So if you're like me and you have your hands down in the dishwater right now, or you're driving along on the interstate and there's just something that you'd like to write down and you don't want to take your eyes off the road or hands out of the dishwater or whatever the case is, maybe you're running on the treadmill, just go ahead, sign up for this email. And then after you listen to an episode, you can go check your email and you can see all these things that we've been chatting about. So go to Solely Rested, SOULY rested.com/podcast, PODCAST. And there you can sign up and I'll send you this stuff right to your inbox, including sometimes I have special offers and things I'm mentioning. I'll send you those too. SolelyRested.com/podcast. So one thing you can do is you can buy all natural food dyes. You can. And they look just like you grew up with, the little bottles that you can squeeze the drops out of. And they don't have any harmful ingredients. So you can do that. You also can use all natural things, quote unquote, to make your dye. And I actually shared a reel on Instagram the day that this all went down. And folks were very intrigued and really liked it. In fact, I guess I could link a reel. Maybe I put it on YouTube too. If I put it on YouTube as a short, I think I did, then I will share the link to that in the show notes as well. So you can actually see what I'm talking about and see these all natural adaptogens that you can use to make these beautiful colors. I was making icing for cutout cookies. And I filmed this quick little reel showing the 5 different colors that I had made of my icing. And I had made them from just botanicals and adaptogens, just totally really good for you stuff. Adaptogens and botanicals are just plant materials. So some of them might be the leaves of the plant, some of them might be the roots of the plant, some of them might be the ground up stems, but it's just plants. If you do any kind of natural dyeing, the whole plant world, all of nature is full of amazing natural dyes. And when my girls were little, there was a spotted touch-me-not flowers that grew in the park where we played, and they pressed them. What are they also called? The other name is eluding me, but we called them spotted touch-me-nots because when you do touch it, when it's a ripe flower and it's ready, the seed will burst out. It's really fun. It's so fun. But we pressed some flowers, and a month later, the girls came back. They were just little and got so excited that the page around the flower had turned orange. So even just a simple, delicate little flower that you wouldn't even think of for dye can make these beautiful, beautiful colors. I'm not saying that you need to go out and find spotted touch me nots in August and make orange dye. I have a better option for you for that, actually. But my point is, the plant world is filled with all natural, wonderful things that are not only healthy for us, but freaking beautiful. So the first one that I showed in the reel was beetroot. And I don't like beets. I don't know if I've shared that on here before. I hate beets. And it's not for my mom not trying. She definitely tried. I just don't like beets. Never will. It's just not going to be a thing. So the first time I used beetroot powder to dye something, I thought, ooh, how's this going to go? Am I going to want to eat this? It's fine. Guys, you can't even tell. If you do taste a slight tinge of a different off flavor, it's simple enough to just add a little more maple syrup or honey or whatever natural sweetener you're using. Just add a little bit more and it will cover up any flavor you might not like. But I didn't have that trouble with any of these that I'm going to recommend. I just use them straight, added them right into my icing. Of course, icing is also filled with enough sugar already, so that could be part of it. But beetroot powder is a wonderful red. It's kind of a pinkish red, but it's a much more powerful flavor than if you're using the red drops. Because when you're dyeing something with that red food dye from your childhood, you got to put a lot of drops if you actually want red. I'm talking like half that little bottle if you really want red, right? The beetroot powder, even though it's I don't know how to describe this. It's more of a pinkish red. It's not a deep red. No matter how much of it you put, it's never going to be, well, maybe if you put a lot, it's not typically going to be a deep, bright red. It's more of a, well, the color beet. It's more of a purpley red. So it turns out to be more pinkish than red, but you need to use a lot less of it than you would if you were using a red food dye. So I'm a big fan of it. Red beetroot powder. And then butterfly pea flower, you can get that as actual leaves for making loose leaf teas, or you can purchase it ground up as a powder. Of course, all these things you could probably make, maybe not all of them. You can make yourself some of these for sure. If you have butterfly pea flowers, I don't even know what those are, honestly. I have to look that up if that's something I can grow. I really don't know. Um, hmm. Anyway, it is the most gorgeous blue color. If you're going to be putting it in something that you're adding something acidic to, like lemon juice, I think I'm getting this right. It turns it purple. Yeah, it's blue without the acid and purple with the acid. Gorgeous. And then there's green. You use matcha, just the ground up green matcha powder, and it's a great green food dye. And turmeric, you might know how that is a great adaptogen. That's a really great thing to add to your diet. It makes a really pretty orange color. And finally, one that is new to me. I actually don't know much about this. Maybe I'll look it up and fill you guys in more in future episodes. It's called, I'm not sure of the pronunciation. I think it's Camu Camu, Camu, Camu Camu. And it makes an interesting brown color. Brown is a color that I'm never able to make when I mix my food dyes to make it the way I want it to look. But this is a really nice brown. Like if you, I don't know, you're putting icing on like gingerbread men and you want it to be like a gingerbread color, or you want it to be kind of skinnish color. I don't know, brown. I was excited to find this brown. It's a really nice brown. So I will link those 5 adaptogen powders if you are interested in trying to make these different natural colors. I will link them all in the show notes. And by the way, I'm just going to tell you right now, they are all from my absolute favorite source where I get all of my adaptogens and botanicals. I will give you a link, and I will also give you, now that I'm thinking about it, I have a code for you. I will give you a code so you could stock up on these and save at the same time. If you don't want to go to the show notes, you don't get that email from me, you also could go to soulyrested.com/teas, TEAS. And that is primarily all my favorite teas. But if you scroll down, There's a whole section on botanicals, and you'll find information about these 5 all natural food dye botanicals at solelyrested.com/teas. I want to pause this episode and tell you to go to solelyrested.com/seeds, SEEDS. If you are going to plant any food this year, if you're looking for seeds, if you need live plants, if you need any sort of gardening items, you want to go to solelyrested.com/seeds and check out my new favorite seed company. I want you to take advantage of the special offer, the special savings that you can enjoy on any purchase that you would like to make there. These seeds are amazing. This company is super particular with what seed suppliers they work with. They have a 75-acre farm where they test every single variety of seed before they make it available. And their seed germination standards are way higher than industry standards. On top of that, you won't find GMO seeds at all from this company because they don't just talk about doing the right thing, about leading to healthy soil and good ecosystems, but they do the right things and they refuse to sell GMO seeds. Go to solelyrested.com/seeds, enjoy the savings, and check this out. solelyrested.com/SEEDS. Okay, so one more reservation I have about this ban from the FDA. I'm afraid as consumers, it's going to make us a little more lax. Hopefully, it's not going to make us trust the FDA anymore. Hopefully, we've seen through this and we realize this is actually proof that we really can't totally just rely on the FDA to safeguard our family's health and well being in the food that we eat. We really need to be wise consumers of our food. Um, but also, hopefully, um, it's not going to make us just sit back and go, okay, they're cleaning things up. It's fine now. And it's okay if I see red food that my kids are eating because the FDA has banned that red dye. So it's good. Because by the way, there's more red dye too that needs to be banned, which is a whole nother issue. But in general, I hope that this is going to make us even more vigilant about our food. And I hope, how do I word this? I hope that we don't get taken on a little ride per se. I think that the big food is aware that in general, moms out there want better food for their families. And I think there's going to be some marketing ploys coming out that tell us, they're using all natural ingredients. For instance, I think we're going to see a lot of companies saying they're using tallow because there's been lots of talk about seed oils and how they're so bad for us. I know I've had previous episodes about that. I will link those for you in the show notes if you want to know more about seed oils. I know I had Ruth Ann Zimmerman on, and her and I talked a long time about the amazing, wonderful nature of lard and tallow and why we love them as healthy fats. So I'll definitely link that episode for you. Um, but I think we're going to see people buying that hook, line, and sinker. Like, oh, maybe, who knows? Maybe McDonald's will be one. Maybe McDonald's will go back to their tallow fries because when they started out, they literally were cooking their fries in beef tallow, the good stuff, the real stuff. They might say they're going back to their roots and now all their fries are cooked in healthy tallow. But if they do that, I can pretty much guarantee you with 98.9% accuracy, it's not going to be real beef tallow. It's going to be highly processed. It's actually going to be probably deodorized tallow. And deodorized just means that it has been so highly processed. It doesn't even resemble tallow anymore. And they can use it so many times before it turns rancid if they have put the tallow through this really high level of processing. And they're probably going to add BHT and other preservatives, citric acid and other things. And these preservatives have been banned in other countries, but yet our FDA says they're okay. So most likely, if that happens, if Michelle's prophecy comes true and McDonald's goes back to tallow fries. Don't believe it. Don't go, oh, I can go to McDonald's and eat all the fries I want now. Because, well, first of all, their potatoes are genetically modified, but that's a whole different issue. But the tallow, it's probably going to be deodorized. It's probably going to be so highly processed, they shouldn't be allowed to call it tallow. And if you ask, probably like ask the person you're buying your hot dogs, do they sell hot dogs? Where did that come from? It's been a while since I've been to McDonald's. You're buying your burger and your fries from, that they won't know. They'll say, yeah, it's tallow. And you could even ask them, is it really, like from a cow, like real beef tallow? Sure. They won't know. Um, you could probably ask them, could I see the packaging? They might think you're insane, but maybe they'd let you, or maybe they'd like get a picture of the package and show you what the actual ingredients are. But like I said, I have 98.9% certainty that it's not going to be simply tallow. It's going to list 4, 5, 6 different preservatives, including BHT. And it's going to probably say right there that it is deodorized tallow. So I guess that's my whole point of this whole episode. Continue to be vigilant. Don't get caught up on the excitement that, yay, the FDA is improving things. You can't trust them with your family's health and what you're eating. Um, Maybe someday it'll be a good starting point, but I don't think it'll ever be something that you can just totally sit back and say, well, the FDA approved it. We're good. It's all good. So, is all of this sometimes hard? Like to be vigilant like this? Absolutely. Could you get carried away? Absolutely. If you get to the point that it's impacting your own health, which it could very well do, you could get so caught up in, I'm going to limit this and we can't have that and restrict everything. And it can absolutely impact you worse than if you just ate the bad food. So I'm always trying to cautiously warn you and also tell you very honestly, I'm not on some righteous pedestal doing all this stuff that we talk about. I'm talking about the options, and I personally am choosing the things that I think are going to have the most impact on our family and that I can actually do. And all the other things that I maybe have mentioned here on the podcast, even, I can't do them all. I can't. And you can't let yourself go crazy. So choose your hard. But that's the good thing. You get to choose your hard. You get to choose which one of these things you're going to start with. And you get to choose what level you're going to go to. And you can gradually work your way up. For instance, and this is true in all of life. Um, if you want to be able to function better, I've noticed lately, I'm 55, and I've noticed getting down to the bottom cabinet in my kitchen and squatting down to, squatting is what the word. I was like, what's that called? Squatting is what it's called. When you're squatting down, getting back up isn't quite as easy as it used to be. And sometimes my knees creak a little bit. So I don't want to lose that function. If I want to be able to function better, then that could be one of the things I choose, even though it's a little hard sometimes, I choose to work on. So I added in balance, and I added in some balance squatting on, I just call it the ball at the gym, but it's not a ball. It's a flat bottom with a ball on top. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you think I'm crazy. But anyway, I stand on that and I will do squats up and down on this very uneven surface. And I kept working at it. The first times I did like two. And I kept falling off. Now I'm only up to like 12 and 3 sets of it, but I'm working at it. So that's one of my quote unquote, one of my hards that I added because I don't want to lose that function of the balance or the ability to squat and get back up easily. So if you want to function better, that was a long ramble to tell you, if you want to function better, then figure out what stretches you need to do, what balance exercises you can do, and start doing it, right? If you want to have more energy, you want to be able to do more, hike or go on longer bike rides or whatever it is, then start exercising. And I'm going to add a little interjection here. A lot of times people will tell me, well, I have a little farm or I'm a homesteader, so I don't add any exercise because I'm always doing exercise. To some degree, I mean, yes, you are moving your body more than the person who's sitting at a desk job, definitely. And to some degree, yes, you have an ability to lift 25 bags of pig food or whatever it is. and you have an ability to push a heavy wheelbarrow. So, yes, in some ways, you have more abilities than people who don't own a small farm, maybe. But it's not the same as if you're going to the gym, as if you're counting your steps, as if you're adding in some exercise that you really love. For me in the summertime, it's paddleboarding. But even though I really, really love paddleboarding, I don't do it and get the benefits of that exercise unless I tell myself, this is my have to. Every day that I'm able, 5 days out of 7, I'm going to go out and I'm going to paddleboard. And I make myself, even though it's something I love, I have to make myself. So you see what I mean? Like, if don't give yourself excuses. If it's the hard thing that you want to make sure you accomplish, having more energy, being able to do things, then make yourself do the exercise and don't give yourself excuses that, well, I do X, Y, and Z every day. That's great. Keep doing that, but add on the exercise you need to gain the benefit you're looking for. What about maybe just in general, you just want to be healthier? Okay, work at cleaning up your diet. And you can do it. You can have a lot of resources like this podcast. Follow me over on Instagram. And there's lots of people you can be following as well that are going to give you healthy insights, and little bits at a time. You can do it. Choose your hard and do it. It's the same thing if you want a better marriage. You got to work at it. You know that if you've been married for any length of time, you know it's freaking hard. And you have to put the other person before yourself again and again and again. And even after you've done it for 30 years, you have to still catch yourself all the time. Like, wait, I'm putting myself first. I need to think about his needs, and I need to be thankful for all that he does for me. And you need to talk to yourself again and again as a spouse if you want to be a better spouse. So you got to do the hard things. Same thing with the friendship. I'm really bad that there are some people that I've really, really wanted to connect with over the past month. And for different reasons, I haven't been able to. And that's my fault. That is on me. I need to choose that hard, quote unquote. I need to make the time, and it needs to be non negotiable. So, all I'm saying is whether it's red food dye or the fats that you're eating in your foods, whatever it is, it can be just like any other part of life. Choose what's important to you and start working on it, because you can do it. You have that ability and you're able. You can do it. If you want a starting point for a few non toxic products, I had started a while back doing a second episode a week, and then life got nutty. In fact, I'll tell you a secret. I don't think I've announced this anywhere. I recorded a podcast last week that I announced it, but that won't be out for a few more weeks to the public. So I think this is the first place I've announced it. I've been working on a resource that I'm so excited about. I've been making my own flour for almost 7 years now. But until about a year ago, I was not using it exclusively because there were so many nuances to doing it well and enjoying the food that was resulting with my fresh flour. So everything that I've been learning over the past 7 years, I've been kind of taking notes. I've been documenting things. I've been writing some recipes. I'm putting it all together in a huge resource. And I have been devoting a lot of time to that behind the scenes. I haven't mentioned it anywhere, but that's one reason. By the way, watch for that to be coming out. Ooh, I'm hoping in a couple weeks, guys. I'm hoping by February, at least at some point in February, this resource will be available. And I can't wait to share it with you. I'm sure I'll mention it again on the podcast when it is available. But anyway, I've been putting so much time and effort. I'm having so much fun creating this. That's one reason I haven't done that second episode a week. I told you I'd get back to it in January probably. And here it is, mid-January, and I still haven't. And it probably won't be until like March at this point. But I want to get back to that second episode. Let me know you guys' thoughts. Let me know if you liked that, if you miss it. It was just a short 5 minutes or less Friday episode that I was releasing. And a lot of those were related to products I had found recently that I was really excited about, some non toxic products. So, my point to that is something like that could be a resource that helps you figure out one thing you're going to start with and start using a better product. I talked about shampoos and hair products, I believe, and maybe some skincare. I can't even remember. I did write down what episodes they were. So if you want to catch those, I'll tell you the episode numbers and I'll put them in the show notes. It's going to be long show notes. Episode 124, 126, and 128 were all non-toxic products that I've been using and loving. 124, 126, 128. Okay, I'm about ready to wrap up here, guys. And I want to share with you something that I just heard this week. just a little simple poem, and then explain to you how I think it relates to red number 3. People wait all day for 5 p.m., all week for Friday, all winter for summer, and all summer for winter, and all life for happiness. Don't let the pursuit of tomorrow diminish the joy of today. And I was thinking, it kind of relates to the fact that we waited for 3 decades for this ruling from the FDA that we're excited about now, which is, like I said, it's a good ruling. We are going to wait 3 more years for 1 out of 36 food dyes to actually be eliminated. Um, we we don't wait. We don't want to have to wait a lifetime to see junk food eliminated. We don't want to let the waiting for real food becoming popular again just put us on hold, and we're still eating the junk. Um, because we can affect what we're feeding our family. We can affect our health. We can affect the final outcome today. We can live in today, and we can find joy in today, even in the food that we're eating, little by little, to not feel overwhelmed, but find the joy in the one little thing that we have learned about that we can change, and be glad that we can do that. So I hope that encourages you. I just want to wrap up for those of you who don't know and explain. I personally am a former processed food junkie. I turned a real food enthusiast sometime in the past decade. Very slowly, I was turning in that direction because 10 years ago, our family left the rat race. We moved to the country and we started growing and raising some of our own food and intentionally trying to simplify things a little bit. A few things, though, were really hard for me to figure out, like the fresh flour that I just mentioned. A few things had some really large learning curves, things like kombucha and dehydrating our food and making maple syrup. That was the first really hard thing. So, as I worked through learning these things, I started creating some resources, which, by the way, you can find all of them at soulyrested.com/learn, LEARN. And I started thinking about writing the book that I wrote about making maple syrup. I created an Instagram page, I created a blog, and then eventually created this podcast. So I'm just here chipping away little by little as I myself am learning these things. I just had to have some outlet to share what I was learning and, to continually remind you, I'm still learning myself, not an expert, but it's an exciting ride. And I am so glad that you are here for it. So thanks for listening today, friends. Remember, it is easy to forget how blessed we are to live this life. So enjoy the simple, everyday efforts. It's not easy, but it's a very good life.